We're going to talk through 141 Summit Ridge Drive in Boiling Springs, South Carolina. Let me just open this map so people can see where that's at. So it's north of northern part of Spartanburg, South Carolina. Nice little area up there. A good neighborhood. You can see the street view over here. It's a clean little house. Doesn't need much work at all. Let's jump into some pictures. Again, the property address is 141 Summit Ridge Drive in Boiling Springs, South Carolina, just north of Spartanburg. It is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,600 square foot home. You can see from the outside it's in really good condition, with just some minor work to do. And again, we're going to be owner financing this one, so not a lot of rehab work. We will let the new tenant buyers do that work and kind of put their sweat equity into it and make it their home. That's what we're all about. So front picture here. Cruise through these quickly.
Yeah, there's not a lot. This is a clean house, man. Got a nice Laramie Dodge too.
Yeah. We will most likely get someone in there to address the leaking condensation from the HVAC unit that's causing a little fungi growth in the crawl space, but that'll be easily taken care of. We may even have one of our current tenant buyers who does remediation come in there and check it out and knock it out for us. But not a big deal. Here in the South, any basement crawl space you go into, you're going to have fungi of some sort, but we'll get that knocked out.
Probably put a new vapor barrier on there too, it looked like.
Yeah. Pretty much brand new condenser on the outside unit for the HVAC. Nice deck on the back. Just a solid home. Pretty much move-in ready. Nice fenced-in backyard. Propane for heat.
Big deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody's gonna love this house.
Yeah, just a really clean property, ready to roll for a new tenant buyer.
Dual vanity. That'll work well. How many beds was this one? Bed and bath? Two?
3-2.
Bath?
3-2, yeah. 3-2. And so a dishwasher line needs to be connected. It kind of makes me dizzy scrolling through these pictures so fast. But
you have more to talk to, but whenever you got one this clean.
Yeah, it's kind of nice not having much to say about the pictures because it's pretty much ready to roll. So this one, Ethan got this one sub 2. I believe Ethan got this one sub 2. If it wasn't Hunter, but this will be a good deal to talk through because we'll talk about the trust, how we go through the process again and make this a win-win-win for the seller, for the buyer, and for us. And it's more like a win-win-win-win because we've got the seller, we've got the private money investor, we've got our business, and then we have the buyer. Everybody comes out on top on this. And again, we feel like this is the new way to do real estate. So this is a perfect example of how we can help somebody out that has a troubled property that I think they have a lien on this one as well that we're going to take care of. 2 liens on it that we'll take care of, get them out from under the property so they can move on. We'll take over the responsibility for the mortgage, making the mortgage of the payments for the underlying mortgage that's in place, and put a new buyer in place. So I don't even know, there is some walkaway money on this one. So we'll obviously have a private money investor come in for the walkaway. but kick it over to Trav to talk through the numbers. I think you should be able to share. Hey, Trav, why don't, before you talk through the numbers on this one, do you want to talk through the trust model on the front end of this and then go through the numbers?
Yeah, talk about how we put it into trust.
Yeah, just talk about, I thought it would be good to just show a visual, kind of do a drawing of some sort, talk through the trust, and then.
Oh yeah, man, I'm not the best at this, so I might need some help on it. But it's like, so whenever we purchase the property on the front end, like we're, in essence, we're taking over responsibility for their mortgage. So if you know how to kind of explain to me, Sam, I'll definitely draw this puppy on here, but I'm not the best at drawing them.
All right, yeah, let's give it a shot. So like we said, we're purchasing this property subject to. So subject to, if you're unfamiliar, all that means is subject to the underlying mortgage. So there's a current mortgage in place, and we're coming in and paying off the liens in cash, and giving the seller a chunk of cash right off the bat to enable them to move on, to pay off some bills, to get into a new property. But the majority of the purchase price is built-in financing based on that mortgage that is already in place. So the mortgage will stay in the seller's name, but we will take over all responsibilities for the property and for the mortgage. So we will pay the principal and interest, and the new tenant buyer, through their payment, will pay the taxes and insurance. So everything will be covered by the new buyer's payment, but we're taking over the property subject to the underlying mortgage. So we'll take it sub to. Title will transfer out of the seller's name into the name of the trust. So we create a trust for every property that we buy. So this will be the Summit Drive Trust, let's call it. So maybe draw I forget how Jeff does it, draw like the document or whatever, the trust, if you can. And I can edit out whatever doesn't make sense. So let's say that let's call that the title. Let's call that the title.
I wish I knew where you were going with it, and I could try to stay with you.
So we're going to show how the title transfer, we're going to show how the trust encompasses everything. So this is the title that's currently in the seller's name. That title is going to transfer in the trust. So let's draw a big circle in the middle, Trav, and that'll be the trust. Okay, so when we close on the property on the buy side, that title is then going to go into the trust name. So that will be held in the trust.
I wonder why all these are crooked.
And what happens here on the front end is that the seller becomes a settler. They gain beneficial interest of the trust. So that enables us to avoid any Dodd-Frank or due on sale issues with the underlying mortgage, because the sellers still has beneficial interest on the trust. So they are still associated with that property. So they are a beneficiary, the seller. We become a beneficiary because we have purchased the property subject to. We have equitable interest in there because we put we are purchasing it with equity, and the private money lender will have beneficial interest of the promissory note that is also held within the trust. So there's also a promissory note held in that trust, and that's what ties the private money lender to the trust and protects them. So to take a step back, the reason that we put this in a trust is to protect, is a safeguard for everybody involved. It's a safeguard for the seller. It's a safeguard for the private money lender. and it's a safeguard for Runway Properties as the investor, and protects everyone's interest to where it's clearly defined. So again, the seller has beneficial interest. We have beneficial interest in the private money lender at this point. This is on the purchase side. So now we've purchased the property. Trav's going to go and market it for a tenant buyer, and then we find a buyer who is going to come in and occupy the property, and then they will also become beneficiary of the trust. My man Alan got another property for us to buy. Love getting those texts. So now we've got the tenant buyer who is going to come in and put a down payment down, and become the beneficiary of the trust. And so what that means is within the trust, we will create a mortgage that will be held in there as well. And we will also create a lease. So that tenant buyer comes in and they have, I think we're selling this one for $200K. They'll come in, there will be a mortgage on the property that we apply to the tenant buyer for $200K. And what happens is when that title transfers into a title holding trust, it now becomes personal property. So yes, we're technically selling the home at the end of the day, but what we're actually selling from a legal standpoint is that beneficial interest of the trust. So the buyer is coming in and buying the beneficial interest of the trust. They're not buying the property legally, they're buying the beneficial interest. So they are buying that mortgage. And the reason that we're doing that is to protect the seller, ourselves, and the private money lender, because if that buyer stops making payments or they default or whatever, as opposed to having to go and foreclose on them, since they're only buying the beneficial interest and not the actual property, we don't have to foreclose. We can evict because they're technically on a lease. So put that in there too, Trav. Put the lease in the trust. So that lease is going to give them occupancy status. So they can occupy the property while they're paying it off. And that mortgage is held in there as well. So let's say that
these are all going right here. Perfectly on that end of it. So those are kind of all, really, it probably would have been a better picture to draw a house and put in a buyer, lease, and mortgage within the trust, really. Because then that puts all three different things in there. You know, you have the title, prom note, home, all encompassed within a trust.
Yep. Okay.
Everybody holding their own beneficial interest within the trust.
Yep. Okay. We can do it that way next time. So, but in any way, I think hopefully folks will get the gist that the trust basically encompasses encompasses everything that we're doing here. So the tenant buyer knows what the mortgage amount is to purchase that beneficial interest. They are going to be paying that down based on the lease, but from a legal standpoint, they are a tenant. They're a beneficiary of the trust, but from an occupancy standpoint, they are a tenant. And also, not to go too deep, but the way that the trust is outlined, since they are a beneficiary of the trust agreement states that anyone who stops making payments on the lease, all beneficiaries must pursue eviction for them. So basically, they're signing up as a beneficiary to evict themselves if they were to stop making payments.
Yep.
So again, it's a really cool tool, super powerful a way to do deals, and but it can get a little complicated. But it all makes sense. But it's all about putting safeguards in place to protect everybody's interest in the deal. And at the end of the day, it's all about getting that buyer, relieving the seller from a problem property, and providing home ownership to a buyer. So a little lengthy explanation here. But what this also enables us to do is, actually, I won't get into it in this deal because we're not going to refi. But
yeah, and we're going to get better at explaining and drawing it. But really, we're we're just minimizing any downside that can happen. It's basically, it's a way of doing like a transaction, just a better way and a different way.
Yep. So again, pretty complicated. Just wanted to give that overview. All right. So
let's jump into the numbers.
The numbers.
I'm going to get a whole new page here. All right. So again, guys, this is 141 Summit if you're the investor on this deal. So I'll be talking about your returns, and what your money will be doing, and how it's all going to work. So we're purchasing this home for, I believe it was 145K. ARV is 185, which means in the owner finance ARV world, it's 200K. Okay. So the way we have this thing set up, I did some homework before this, so I kind of have all my notes here. You'll see me glancing down at it. So the mortgage on this one was 122,000. We have a walkaway amount, which in this case, guys, so the walkaway amount is always the private money. That's private money lending. So whoever the private money lender is, you're the walkaway here. 23,500. Okay. The interest rate on the underlying, which is right here, the 122, it's 4.7. This interest rate for our investors, we're anywhere between 8 and 12%. So that makes our payment on the mortgage $723 a month. Our payment to our private money lender somewhere around $235, give or take. Okay, so that's an all-in. What is that? Total monthly payment. Total. What is it? 859. 958. Cool. Sorry, guys. Let's go sell this puppy. So again, our owner finance ARV, it'll be 200,000. For this one, I'll probably get a little bit bigger of a down payment than 10K. Truthfully, we'll probably get bigger than 15, but let's just say we get a $15,000 down payment. That makes my total mortgage on this property 185K. My interest rate is 8.9, making my monthly payment 1,475. All right. So here's the end game, guys. There's no refinancing being done here. We're taking over the underlying, and we have a private money lender in place. So here's the end game. So my profit, my cash in right off the bat, 15,000. My note, 40,000. Cash flow, 517. All right, that's the end game on the note, guys. A couple of things to point out here. Whenever we do a mortgage, we add 5% to it, 3 for origination, 2 for closing costs, since we cover the buyer's closing costs on the front end. Then, a couple things I want to point out. So the private money lender, he's probably in here for a few years, or, 6 months, 12 months, whatever he wants to be in there for, 30 years. It's wherever you want to be at. So he's earning $235 a month. He or she is earning $235 a month. Let's just say we're going to pay them back within 12 months. So I'm adding to my cash flow $235. So here's what my deal is going to look. Here's what this deal is going to look like in a 12-month time frame. It'll actually be cash flowing $752 by the end of that term. So if we keep the private money lender in for 30 years, we'll cash flow $517. They'll cash flow $235 a month. And that's all with just being in for 20 to 25K, guys. Great deal for everyone there. If we pay if the private money lender wants their money back 6 months, 12 months, 36 months, 5 years, we'll pay them back at that time. And then our cash flow will increase to $752 a month. Our note, here's the big thing to point out again, guys. This is something, this is the beauty of this stuff. So I think did this note just refi, or was this an older note, Sam? Do you remember?
It just refied.
It just refied. So here's the cool thing. Even though this is a brand new note, so ours is at 7 Point out a few things. Ours is at 4.75. It's at 8.9. The equity pay down on this note is so much bigger, so much faster than what these are. This right here probably won't grow a ton each year, but it'll probably grow over 3,000+ and just snowball every year to add another, 5-10% to the deal every single year. Where at year 10, this note, it's probably 60+ K by the time they cash out. So, and we're still cash flowing this or this, depending on the private money lender. So just wanted to point that out. It's a really cool thing. And you make 15K on the front end. That's it for that note, guys. Cool.
Cool. Again, 141 Summit, just north of Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Yeah, it's a good spot.
Cool.
Cool, man. I think that's it on that deal.